Good day, everyone, and welcome to the Sound Archives. My name is Christian Maiorino, and I am the host of this channel. So today's episode will be the first of a multi-part series examining the works of two great heavy metal legends. Of course, Ozzy Osbourne and Ronnie James Dio. You can see the two records behind me here. Um, so, as far as I'm not going to be reviewing those two particular albums today, but they will be getting to in a later episode. Um, of course, the rivalry between these two probably really kind of started in the Black Sabbath era when Dio replaced Ozzy as the singer of Black Sabbath, and Ozzy famously had a short person on the tour with him, which he nicknamed Ronnie, which is probably a little insult there at Dio being, of course, or having been a short man at about 5 foot 2 inches tall, I believe. But anyway, when I decided to do this video, I thought it'd be a cool idea to kind of compare the different works of these two great artists. Really, um, the Black Sabbath era with the solo Ozzy and the Dio Sabbath era might have been an obvious place to kind of start. But what I decided to do is really kind of go back a little bit further than that, going back into the 1970s. So we'll be doing the Rainbow albums up against the last couple Black Sabbath albums with Ozzy, kind of going year to year, album to album, and that's more or less how I plan to do this throughout the multiple part series here. I didn't want to go back and do the Elf albums with Dio, comparing those against the first five or so Black Sabbath records. One, I'm not a really huge fan of those albums, and they're okay. No disrespect to any of the Elf fans, but I really don't think they compare to those early Black Sabbath records. So we're not going to be covering that period. So we're going to start with about 1975, and we'll start with this album right here, Sabotage by Black Sabbath. Um, this is a great album. This is really Sabbath, probably at the peak of their creativity in the 70s. You got the classic Hole in the Sky, Symptom of the Universe, which is just this really killer heavy riff in it, and then it just goes into this kind of jammy acoustic thing towards the end, and it transitions nicely. You have the Megalomania, which is epic track. Thrill of It All, one of my favorite Black Sabbath songs. It's just a song. It just has this feel good vibe to it, but it's still really heavy. It kind of has this feeling where you just want to like jump up and punch a hole in the ceiling. um, you have Super Czar, which is this kind of orchestral interlude in between that song and The Writ, which is another epic track on this album. I guess the lyrics with that one were kind of inspired by legal troubles that Sabbath was having with management. And then the album closes out, at least my version does, closes out with Am I Going Insane? Um, which is a nice song. It's more driven by the synthesizers in that one. And then, of course, he had the second track, which is called Don't Start Too Late, which is kind of this little quiet interlude between the heavy rockers of Hole in the Sky and Symptom of the Universe. Overall, Ozzy really sings his ass off on this album. I think, the power and everything, the feeling that he really has singing on this is, I don't think he ever did this again. Really, later in his career, his vocals I think sounded a bit more subdued on even the couple Sabbath albums after this and into his solo career. But man, really early on, he really did, sing with a lot of emotion. Um, so overall, great album. Probably one of my favorite Sabbath. Usually, this one and Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath are kind of the top. Take either one could be my favorite one any day. I usually lean probably more towards Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath, but some days I would say this is my favorite Black Sabbath of everything that they've done. And of course, we can get into the album cover here. You can see it there. It's just really just a picture of the band in the backdrop of this mirror. You have Tony and Geezer there in kind of typical 1970s attire there. You have Ozzy wearing this kind of Komodo thing with the high heels. Maybe he's just trying to look like, wants to, as the singer of the band, wants to make himself kind of stand out. Bill Ward's outfit, on the other hand, man, I don't know what happened that day when they decided to go on this photo shoot. It's as if he like showed up with no pants on, and they're like, "Here, Bill, wear these," and these red tights, which you could practically see as junk in there. But regardless, fucking killer album. So also in 1975, you had well, a little background here. Ritchie Blackmore, being the guitar player in Deep Purple, was growing dissatisfied with the direction that the band was going in. There was a song called Black Sheep of the Family, which he wanted them to cover, and the other band members kind of rejected the idea. So on their last tour, they had a band called Elf opening them, which, as I alluded to before, they had a singer named Ronnie James Dio, and Blackmore was impressed with Dio's vocal ability, and I guess the two kind of struck up a friendship, and Ritchie Blackmore eventually absorbed the whole band Elf and created Ritchie Blackmore's Rainbow. So on this album, this is a little bit different than what we're doing with Deep Purple. It kind of has a medieval theme kind of going throughout here. Of course, you look at the album cover, it has this this guitar that's this guitar castle going on here. But man, you got another just strong album right off the rip here. You got Man on the Silver Mountain, classic Rainbow and Dio song there, something that he would continue playing through his live shows with the Dio band. Then you got Self Portrait, another good song there. Black Sheep in the Family, which is a cover song, the song that Ritchie wanted to do with Deep Purple that they rejected. It's an okay song. You got Catch the Rainbow, which is a ballad, and it really shows Dio's vocal abilities on that one. He does a really good job singing these softer ballads, just as much as he does singing the more rockin' stuff here. But he sounds great on that. Side 2, you start with Snake Charmer, another decent song. Temple of the King, which is another ballad similar to Catch the Rainbow. If you don't like rock and roll, this song kind of sounds almost more like stuff that Dio was doing with Elf. 16th Century Greensleeves, fucking fantastic song. Just killer riff at the beginning, and I just the way the chorus there at the end, singing "Hang 'Em Higher" and all that, freaking fantastic. Still I'm Sad is the track closing out this album, and it's an instrumental song, but it's a good song nonetheless. So you had the players on here, obviously Ritchie Blackmore on guitar and Dio on vocals, and then the rest of the Elf, or the guys who were in Elf. So on drums you had Gary Driscoll, bass you had Craig Gruber, and Mickey Lee Soul on piano and organ on this one. So overall, pretty good album. I think this is Dio's big statement to the world right here. It's probably the first major album that he sang on. I mean, of course he was in Elf before that, and they did a couple albums, but I don't think they had any real, no real commercial success or any real accolades. But it did get a note. They did open for Deep Purple. It did get a notice by Ritchie, so they could do this album right here. So now what we're going to do is we're going to do kind of a comparison here about which one do I like better. Do I like Sabotage better, or do I like Ritchie Blackmore's Rainbow better? So for this one, I'm going to go with Sabotage. I think this is the better album of the two. Like I said, there's just so many great classic songs on here. Sabbath is really creatively at their peak on this album, I think. Like I said, it's similar. It sounds different than the earlier Sabbath albums. There's more of a touch of prog, but I think it just musically takes them to a whole different stratosphere. Kind of similar to Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath. But yeah, I like this album better than Ritchie Blackmore's Rainbow. This is still Still a really good album, but you know, there's a couple songs on here that I think are just kind of okay. I wouldn't say that they're great, but still solid album. I like both of them, but I like Sabotage better. So, all right, so we have that. Now, moving on to 1976. Um, the next Black Sabbath album that they do is Technical Ecstasy, and I don't have a physical copy of that one to share. I do have it on CD, but it was a burn CD because I guess I never bothered to buy that one, a physical copy of that one back in the day. The album cover, I think Ozzy said in an interview once, it looks like two robots fucking on an escalator. I do have it pulled up on my phone here. I don't know if you'll be able to see that. But there you go. It's a little bit blurry, but that's okay. But anyway, it's an okay album, but it's definitely a downgrade from Sabotage, I think. You have Backstreet Kids, which is a decent opening song. You Won't Change Me is that's another okay song, and then you have It's All Right, the third track, which is actually Bill Ward singing vocals on that one, and he actually has a good voice. But I think, you know, the song probably could have been the title track for this album. They just named it It's All Right. I think it pretty much sums up this one. The fourth track, you got Gypsy, which is I like the kind of creepy part in the middle of that song. All Moving Parts Stand Still. That one's kind of boring. Rock and Roll Doctor is okay. She's Gone is okay. The album closes with Dirty Women, which is a great song. Definitely the best song on this album, and one that oddly enough they was included in a lot of their set lists when they were doing the reunion tours. I think a couple times I'd see them, they'd always played that song, which I really like it. I probably would have preferred to hear other songs in their set list, something else, Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath, or Sabotage. But you know, regardless, it's still a great song. But you know, overall, you know, like I was just saying, this album was really kind of a downgrade from Sabotage. I think by this point, you know, the band was, I think, probably fatigued from years of touring. Creatively, the juices may have been running out there, and of course, you know, different substance abuse problems and that thing that they, that we hear about over the years. But anyway, while Sabbath may have been on decline, of course, Rainbow was rising. So this album, also out in 1976, is probably considered by many to be the probably Rainbow's best album, definitely with the Dio. One of the best ones with Dio, I think. I mean, right away, you just look at the album cover. I love this artwork right here with the fist just coming right out there and just coming out to grab the rainbow right there. Of course, by this album, all the guys that were in Elf were pretty much... Richie had fired all those guys by this point. So you have coming in on this album, as far as... I mean, of course, you still have Dio on vocals. Coming in on bass is Jimmy Bain, who would later go on to play in Dio's band. On keyboards, you have Tony Carey coming in. And then on drums, you have the one and only Cozy Powell coming in on drums on this one. So, killer lineup. A lot of people consider this probably the best Rainbow lineup, not just with Dio, but with all the guys. And, yeah, it's kind of hard to argue with that. But the songs on here, you open up with Terror Woman, which is, it starts out with this little keyboard thing at the beginning and then kind of slowly builds up into just this really hard rockin' heavy metal song. Awesome. Run with the Wolf, decent song, decent rocker there. Probably the weakest track in the album, but still good. Starstruck, which is another really good song right there. Lyrics on that, I guess, were inspired by a stalker, one of Richie Blackmore's stalkers, and I guess he wanted Dio to write a song about that, which we have there. Side one, we closes with Do You Close Your Eyes, which is another decent song. Now, side two on this album, those are the two most epic songs, probably the best stuff that ever got put on a record anywhere. You have, of course, Stargazer and A Light in the Black. So side two of this album, again with a picture of the band members there. So side two of this album is sort of a concept album. It's little bit ambiguous about what the story is about, um, which is a lot of Dio's lyrics are kind of like that. It's talking about this wizard who's, I guess, it's a perspective of these, I guess, a worker or a slave or something working on this tower for this wizard to reach some star in the sky, hence the title Stargazer. And then you go to the song "A Light in the Black" is when the wizard falls down and dies, and I guess they eventually see the star there. I don't know. It's a bit ambiguous, but just a lot of really great singing, great playing throughout. Stargazer is this kind of slower, plodding song. A lot of people kind of compare it to Kashmir by Led Zeppelin. It has a similar feel to it. A Light in the Black is just fast out rocking. There's a keyboard thing going on in the middle, Richie's soul in the middle, the drumming, the playing, everything, all the playing on this, the singing, everything is just top notch. So, now comparing this album to Technical Ecstasy, I think it's pretty clear. This is the one that I like better. Just every aspect of it. Like I alluded to before, Black Sabbath was kind of on the decline. Rainbow Dio, right here, they were really coming into their own on here. So, fucking great album. I could probably keep going on and on about this, but I won't. I'm going to go on to the next two albums that I'm going to talk about today. So moving on to 1978, of course, Black Sabbath. They're still in some turmoil there. So after Technical Ecstasy, they go to record their next album, and Ozzy quits the band. At that point, they brought in another singer to start writing material for the new album, and then Ozzy ends up coming back. Ozzy doesn't want to sing a lot of the material that they did with the other guy, so they kind of almost had to start from scratch, and took a very long time to finally put out this album, Never Say Die. Again, not considered by many or myself to be a very strong album. But if I look at the tracks on here, you got the title track opening, Never Say Die, which is it's a catchy song. I like it. Johnny Blade is a pretty good song as well. Kind of starts out this kind of creepy keyboard intro and then goes into a more kind of a rockin' song. Junior's Eyes is more of a, I guess you could say it's kind of like a power ballad. It's a song that kind of goes back and forth from the verse to the chorus, being kind of heavy and a bit more melodic, but probably the best song in this album. I really like it. Supposedly it was inspired by Ozzy Osbourne's father, who passed away shortly before they recorded this, and I guess it was kind of a tribute to Ozzy's dad, that they've said in interviews. Then you get the rest of them. A Hard Road, that song's okay. Shockwave isn't bad. Air Dance, Over to You, Breakout, Swinging the Chain. A lot of the rest of this album, I'm not too much a fan of. The last track, Swinging the Chain, is another one sung by Bill Ward. Again, as I was talking about before, Ozzy didn't want to sing any of the material written with the other singer, so at least on that track, Swinging the Chain, they had Bill Ward sing it. And then there's a couple songs on here where it's there's this kind of like jazz thing going on here, which Over to You has that little break towards the end. Breakout, there's horns in it, which I don't know, to me doesn't really fit Black Sabbath's sound very well. Overall, I would say this album right here is probably the least Black Sabbath sounding album that Black Sabbath ever did. I was looking to Ozzy's vocals on here. He kind of sounds, his vocals kind of changed a little bit throughout the years at Sabbath. As I was saying before, in Sabotage, he was really, singing his ass off on this one. This one, he sounds a bit more subdued, similar to what he would say. I'm not saying he sounded bad, but similar to what he would sound like throughout his solo career. So, overall, it's not the best Black Sabbath album. I think I like it a little bit better than Technical Ecstasy, just because there's probably more songs on this that I kind of dig. But again, overall, kind of a mediocre album. So next up, I don't have a physical copy of this one, but also in 1978, we had Rainbow putting out Long Live Rock and Roll. This album right here is just another classic right here. I'll try to show on my phone here. The artwork there, a little bit blurry. Let me go back there a little bit. But I see the cover there. It's an illustration of the band. So again, here you had some more personnel changes. Tony Carey was replaced on keyboards. And then you had on bass, Jimmy Bain is out. Bob Daisley is in on this album. Of course, Bob Daisley would later go on to play with Ozzy in Blizzard of Oz. Just like Dio would leave after this to join Black Sabbath. So you have that. But anyway, going back to the Long Live Rock and Roll album, you have the title track opening, which just right away just hits you right in the face. Another one of those songs that Dio would be part of his set list with the Dio band, I think pretty much throughout the rest of his career. I think it would always be in their live set list. Excuse me. You have a couple other decent songs. Lady in the Lake, another good song. LA Connection is good. Gates of Babylon, freaking fantastic. Probably, maybe my favorite song on this album. That one, or maybe Kill the King. But Gates of Babylon, I love the kind of Middle Eastern feel that you have going on through that. Kill the King is just another, fast-paced song. Just right away, just ripping with that guitar in the beginning. The Shed, another good song. Sensitive to Light is pretty good. And then the album closes out with Rainbow Eyes, which is this kind of, orchestral ballad. And again, like I was alluding to before, Dio's, vocal abilities. He always did a great job, I think, singing those kind of softer melodies, just like he did with the really heavy songs there. So you have that one song closing out, and so now comparing Long Live Rock and Roll to Never Say Die, I think it's kind of a no-brainer here. I'm going to say Long Live Rock and Roll is the better album of those two. Rainbow, they're still on fire on this one, still kicking ass. I think I might like Rainbow Rising just a little bit better, but Long Live Rock and Roll is another fine album there. But of course, with Rainbow, like I was saying before, pretty much every album they've done, there was always a personnel change. So there's always a rotating cast of musicians there. So after Long Live Rock and Roll, Ritchie Blackmore had the idea that he wanted to take Rainbow in a more commercial direction. So, of course, Dio didn't want to do that, so Dio was out of the band. He brought in Graham Bonnet on lead vocals. Bob Daisley didn't stick around. He was out. Ritchie brought in Roger Glover on bass for that next album. And then on keyboards, they brought in Don Airey. They did the Down to Earth album, which is obviously more commercial, the big hit being Since You've Been Gone. But I'm not going to get too much into that. Maybe a future video which focuses on Rainbow. I'll get more into that since obviously this series is focusing only on Ozzy Osbourne and Ronnie James Dio. So those are the last albums that I'm going to compare in this episode. The next episode we'll get to the next albums when Ozzy's and Dio's career, which would be of course Ozzy's first couple solo albums versus the first couple Dio albums, or the Black Sabbath albums that had Dio on vocals. And I guess closing this out, both men, Dio is, or at least was, obviously I think the better singer of the two. I don't think there's any real argument there. Just his vocal abilities, the range in his voice and everything. Although I gotta say, Ozzy, at least early in his career, on those first few Sabbath albums, I would say the first 6 Black Sabbath albums, he sang really good. I think he sang like I was saying on Sabotage, he really sang his ass off on that one. His vocals were a little bit more subdued in the 80s, but not that he sounded terrible. He's still, Ozzy still has a unique voice. I don't think there's any other singer in heavy metal or hard rock or anything who you could say really kind of sounds like Ozzy. Dio, of course, was always, I think, the more, he's always very serious. you never really saw a sense of humor in anything he did. But Ozzy, on the other hand, you know, he was definitely more of a showman, and you always saw more of that sense of humor, especially in the '80s when you look at some of the videos and everything that Ozzy was doing. But I think I'll get to those in a later video. Um, so if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and we hope to see you next time when we cover the next part in this series. So until then, we'll see you next time.